My name is Patti Whalin, and I'm going to try and make this about Scientology in the 70s. I think this website has one of its purposes, if it's not its main purpose, seems to be when Scientology was more fun. I don't know if that is the way I would classify it, but I think in the 70s it was more enjoyable and more promising than it has been as of late. Before, in the 70s, I did my church training. I trained through to Class 7, which is Power. That's my highest level of church training. And I did the briefing course as a Class 4. And there's a few things about that which I'll comment on in a bit. Before I go into the 70s, I would like to place myself where I am now and have been for, in fact, 31 years. At the end of 78, I met Jeff Felbert, who has put out a handbook called Excalibur Revisited, or Akashic Applications of Scientology. Jeffrey C. Filbert is how he signs in the book. And I have been working live with him since January of 1979. We met formally in December of 1978. And for 31 years and counting, I've been working live with him intensively at times, getting some additional training from him. And we've decided to call this Akashic Technologies. The formal name would be Akashic Applications of Scientology, but Akashic Technologies for short. And I'm committed to this, and that's been my center specialty for 30 years, basically. And it is based on, as a matter of fact, a lot of it's based on the Bridge of the 70s, which, as a matter of fact, he was actually involved in expanded grades and a few things like that, which he states. So I wanted to place myself before I went into Scientology in the 70s, but the different eras seem to be of more interest. So my Class 4 training, my Dianetics in Class 4 training was in San Francisco at the Class 4 org in San Francisco in the early 70s. My briefing course and Power course, which was Class 7, and also the expanded Dianetics course was at American St. Hill Organization, ASHO, in Los Angeles in 74. And I worked, most of my professional organizational work was at the Berkeley Mission, which was an enjoyable experience. A couple of things. That was the era where superliterate, for a few years, superliterate was required for class auditor training, and that enabled us to study on our own, basically. We weren't disrupted with checkouts. We could check ourselves out, and the only thing we had to demonstrate was to actually go in session, and that we could actually do sessions correctly and effectively. So that was a good, it was faster, and it was more enjoyable. And it was a little difficult for a lot of people to make the requirement for that, which was the primary rundown, looking up every word in the study the student had in a dictionary, and that did cause some trouble, but it produced auditors that were easy. It was just easier to put the whole thing together and to apply it. And then the other thing is that the Class 7, with the top training level of Class 7, Power, was an unusual place to stop. I did not go on to Class 8, although a lot of people did. And there's a lot of Class 8s that didn't do Class 7 because they closed it to the field. They closed it to the field while I was on the course. There are some probably esoteric reasons for that were sound. And the expanded Dianetics came from an original interest of mine. In the 70s, we had, first of all, there was this fast flow in training. Most PCs that came to get auditing, I think, were pretty happy with what they'd gotten. And when I worked at the Berkeley Mission, it was there was 20 to 40 staff members, and it was enjoyable. We had a pretty high ARC tight group, and I think that our students enjoyed it, our PCs enjoyed it, and a mission was allowed to do a Dianetics course. We could deliver through Dianetics and through Class 4. A mission was not allowed to train on grades. If people wanted to go on, the mission's purposes really was to train people on Dianetics and do the auditing on them, and then pass them on to a higher organization. But I think there were a number of good missions, and I think a lot of people enjoyed their mission days. It was just lighter, and people got out of it, I think, a lot of what they wanted to get out of it in those days. And if there was, to the degree that there was organizational influence, that was in the Berkeley mission. The executive director, Ned Branch, handled that and effectively kept it away from the rest of us. And we just went about our business, and that was very workable. So we didn't have I'm not saying that some of the things that have come up as of late were absolutely not going on. I think they were a little bit, but they didn't reach us. And we focused on discovering what the best way to apply the technologies was, and trying to make sure that the people that were paying for services, particularly full priced, got something which they consider worthwhile, and got it fairly efficiently. And usually we, at least to a reasonable degree, accomplished that. And we in a lot of ways, I guess it was a better day. I think the integrity of the technology, the bridge that was recommended in that day, the grade chart that was used in that day, was a little bit more extensive and was a little bit simpler. And that's what I consider original technologies. There's a lot of people that would come from different times that would consider something else original technologies, but that's what I consider original technologies. And that's what Akashic technologies, to me, are a correction of and a better version of. And that's kind of the summary of why I selected that. If I thought there was something better, I'd be there. But I don't. So in my field practice, since I went with the Akashic technologies, I can't say that it hasn't been there hasn't been a lot of enjoyment to it. There has. I haven't been too much affected by these downsides and that sort of thing. So in a nutshell, a pretty small nutshell, that would have been my 70s experience, which, as I indicated, basically ended when I began my work with Jeff Filbert in '79. So that's pretty much what I have to say about that.